Hello, 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 and good evening. Welcome to episode 10 of Three Drams. As always, I'm your host, Matt Healy from potstilled.com and Potstilled Live, and I'm going to bring you through some fantastic whiskies we have this evening. As always, we have a lovely box dropped to all of our subscribers' door that brings you three of the finest of Irish whiskies in with the makers, the believers, the people that put these whiskeys together right on your doorstep, in through your YouTube channel, in through your Facebook Lives. And this is where we're going to talk about all of these whiskeys. It's fantastic. This is month 10. It's actually the 11th episode if you count our test pilot episode, which means we're coming up on a year. This obviously was a project put together by the guys from Irish Malts, the Donovan brothers, who are the people to thank for all of this. So all the whiskeys that drop straight to your door every month, they're the guys behind it all, doing all the Trojan work. I just get to come here for the fun part. But it is fantastic to be able to welcome you all this evening. Let us know in the comment section where you're coming to us around the world. Hopefully all of you have your little kits dropping into your door that looks just like this. Now, depending on your subscription level, I always have to say that the lovely little plinth comes if you're a year annual long subscriber. But either way, you will have the box with the three whiskeys drop straight to your door. Now, the first thing I have to tell you is we are going back to our normal Thursday programming after this point. So we appreciate you guys joining us on this fantastic Tuesday. There's still light in the evening sky, and we're going to have some fantastic whiskeys tonight. Of course, we are coming up to the Christmas and gifting season, so do keep an eye out on the Three Drams website because there will be a lot of gifting options this year. If you want to help and introduce people to the world of Irish whiskey, we've had a number of people get in touch from all over the world because over 1,800 subscription boxes go out each month all across the world to all four corners, to Irish whiskey enthusiasts, people who are just starting their journey, and actually a number of celebrities that I'm definitely not allowed to talk about, who join us for these live tastings and, of course, watching them back when recorded. So if you do want to give them as a gift to anyone this year, keep an eye on the website. There will be some fantastic options. And of course, if you're a 3 Drams subscriber, you get, and you have your little box each month, and that's the important part, that you will get an email at the end of the show, right about 5 minutes just before we end, which will give you a discount code for all three whiskeys that we are tasting tonight right into your inbox, and you'll be able to get these whiskeys with a beautiful discount dropped straight to your door, no matter where you are in the world. We have a ton of people coming through in the comments, with people coming in from Maynooth, coming in from the Kingdom. We've got Tyrone as well. There's a lot of people in here as well who are getting excited, very much excited. We've got 2 10-year-olds and a brand new malt whiskey coming from Connacht Distillery on their first ever releases. So as someone says here, we're saying let there be tasting, and absolutely we are excited to welcome all of you. I see Tina from Germany, people coming in from West Cork, from Limerick, from Connacht as well. So it's a delight to have you here. Remember, guys, as we're going through the show, if you are social mediaing this, please use the hashtag 3Drams. That will be means that we'll be able to pick it up on the different social medias and be able to reshare your experiences and to encourage more people to come into the world of Irish whiskey. But of course, most importantly, if you have any comments or questions throughout the show, pop them into that comment box. We are more than happy to pick them up on the show and put them to the people who make these whiskeys and be able to give you the inside information that you've always wanted to know. Of course, we have 3 whiskeys this evening. The first up is our Hinch 10-year-old. Then we have the IrishAmerican 10-year-old. And then, of course, the Connacht Single Malt Batch 1. Do let us know as you're tasting along what you're tasting, the experience you're having with the mouthfeel and the palate of each whiskey. And then at the end of the show, we do always ask for you to let us know in the comments section your order of your favorite whiskeys. We're not judging you. There's no competition. There's nothing to be gained. It's just always interesting to see, as taste is subjective, all the different numbers that come through on what are the most favorite whiskeys of the evening. But you've had enough listening to me. I know that we're here for a very important reason. And so the first thing I'll say is welcome to everyone. We're going to pick up dram number 1, Ivor 1 here. We're going to get this ready because we're going to welcome our first guest for this evening, Mr. Jamie Cotter of Hinch Distillery, with dram number 1. Welcome to the show, Jamie. How's it going?
Not too bad. Yourself, sir?
All very good here.
Lined up for the night.
Now in the world of Zoom and you know the new live stream world, is that a background behind your head, or are you at the distillery?
It's a green screen in my bedroom, really. No, as per normal, some mad person has let me have the keys to the distillery once again. So in our boardroom with the backdrop of, I always forget, wrong side, our three lovely stills right in the background there.
Absolutely,
so it's not
fantastic.
a bad backdrop to have.
Not at all, not at all. And I know that you're helping production this evening. So I think Emma's down on the production room floor waiting for you to come back and give her a dig out with the stills. But
you just keep an eye over my shoulder here in case somebody's running across there. Just give me a shout and I'll have to jump off. But yes, Emma's downstairs finishing off today. So I'll stay behind help her for a wee bit at the same time. So perks of the job, getting to do a bit of this and a bit of production.
Exactly. So we are opening dram number 1 here. So I'm going to pour a little bit into our glass. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're tasting this evening, Jack? Or Jamie, apologies.
Oh, there's the influencer name in there, Matt, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah, so tonight we have our 10-year-old sherry expression. So we do. So it is a blend. It's a blend of grain and malt of 10 years of age, finished for a minimum of 12 months in Oloroso sherry. So just depending on what batch it will be, but it is always a minimum of 12 months. And there's Paul in there saying hello. I got the pleasure of speaking to him last week there in the distillery.
So I'm gonna take up this whiskey we have here. So I'm gonna have a little nose of it.
Yeah.
This is one of the cornerstones of the Hinch portfolio. Just before we have a little sip, because I don't want to keep people waiting for the first whiskey for too long. Why don't you just kind of run us through what people might expect from a whiskey like this? And let's start there.
Yeah, so obviously it is a grain and a malt, so it's a blend. You're going to get both those components coming through. Now, when we say sherry on it, some people might expect the sherry bomb that you would get. It's not. What we went for with this is more of an elegant, subtle sherry finishing to let the bourbon from the 10 years, because there is older components in it as well, to still come through. So the 10-year-old for us is, it's elements of what we take to show what this distillery is going to be doing behind us. We won't be maybe copying this exactly. So what you see in our source liquid now, in X amount of time down the line will be different, shall we say. But for me in the nose, that it is that fresh fruit. I get the earthy garden, like a fresh grass maybe for me. And then in behind it, you do have your sherry notes in there that you would come to expect. But I think, as I said, elegant, you still get the bourbon notes coming through. I think you've had the pleasure of trying this before, I think.
I have indeed. Maybe we take this moment to take a little sip, because I said I'd never like keeping people waiting too long for the first sip. So I'll say sláinte it.
Sláinte it, anticipation. That's what we've all come for, to try it, have we not, at the end of the day? So for me, from what I get, and not to jump on top of people, everybody's palate's different. So it'd be good to see in the comments what other people find in it. And that's the fun of whiskey. But for me, you do get the bourbon elements coming through, the toffee, the vanilla, but then I get the stewed fruits. And then there's almost like a little nutty aftertaste for me that I would find in it. I don't know if anybody else finds that sort of nuttiness afterwards.
Absolutely. I mean, what's lovely about this for me is that there's a layer of flavor, but as you said, the bourbon backbone is creamy. It's underneath. It's not overpowering, but it really complements to that little sherry finish as well. And do let us know in the comment sections if you are sipping along with us what you're thinking of this so far. Bottle at 43%. Is that right, Jamie?
Yeah, all of our expressions are at 43% bar. Our limited edition 18-year-old, which is up to 46. Yes, we put these all out at 43. And you were saying there about the bourbon element still coming through. The reason we've done that is bourbon is going to play a big role in this distillery, but sherry will come down the line as well. So, as I said, we don't want to replicate this whiskey. We want to take expressions that we've got from our small batch to our 5-year-old, our 10, our peated in our pot still. That characteristics from everything will follow through into our distillate. Our first whiskey came off the stills on the 9th of November 2020. So, we're not far into it at this point in time. So say 5 years before we will let anything out of the distillery minimum. But elements of this you can expect down the line, the likes of our small batch bourbon heavy, our 5-year-old, which is our double wood, first fill bourbon, and then virgin American oak. So, if we can take elements of this and put it into our own, we'll be absolutely smiling to hit the cows at home.
Absolutely. And so talk to us about as well I'm actually very much enjoying letting this open up to the air a little bit. There's a lot more spice.
It is definitely one that I would leave, that initial nosing and tasting, but then I would leave it maybe 20 minutes to let it open up. Like some of the things that we do in here, I know it's at 43, but we've played around with it as low as 20 just to see what other things come out. And lowering it again, more fruit does come out. And, that's why we have it at 43. We think it is its best expression at that point. But
no, absolutely fantastic point. It's
funny for me. Spend all day with it.
Absolutely. I was saying on the nose, for me, it's funny. It reminds me of ice cream wafers. That kind of grain biscuitiness with vanilla, a little bit of maybe sweetness, caramel, burnt sugar, as someone else said, it all playing in together.
It is a heavy grain component because it is a blend. The malt, I think, just adds a nice subtle touch to it at the same time. But for me, like I am a sucker for grain.
I would say that so it's a 10-year-old whiskey, which means that the minimum age that's gone into this bottle is 10. But of course, like anyone maturing stock, there's definitely, I would say definitely, but there's usually older stocks in there to balance through flavor. So you're getting a nice kind of pull through on that. And is this a core range item for you guys in Hinch, Jamie?
Yeah, this is the core range. So I do have the full range just sitting out of shop, but tonight we're trying a 10-year-old. So, everybody is starting to learn what the Hinch bottle is. And I remember yourself, you were the first to set eyes on it in Japan. You had the luck of seeing it, but that bespoke bottle with the embossing and the blue label, I just thought set Hinch apart when you're on a shelf presence.
Yeah, absolutely. It almost creates its own space on the shelf to stand out amongst the crowd. And I mean, I see here Mel saying it's a gorgeous whiskey, and I also think it's a gorgeous bottle. Like I spoke about this when I met your colleague in Japan. It's very rare for people to come out the gates with a bespoke bottle. People in your world and my world will know the absolute cost and efforts that bespoke bottles take. But people maybe don't appreciate the lengths and also the creativity that goes into creating those bottles. So it's definitely something that struck me from the beginning was just the packaging, the presentation, the stance the bottles take themselves as well.
I think it was a statement piece on our part. When we were building this distillery, we knew it was going to be a statement from the outside looking in. It's hard to explain the building to people who haven't seen it. It's lovely, lovely stonework by a couple of guys from just up the road in Ballynahinch. And then you've got the brasserie, the courtyard, you've got these big stills looking out. But at the same time, when you're building a lovely distillery like this, you need to match it with liquid. And, everybody shops with their eyes, let's be honest. You walk into an off sales and you may not have tried our product, but you're going to look at a certain amount of products and go, well, appearance is everything. So when we went out with that, bespoke embossing on the front there, and then the label, foiling, all that there, it was just, let's make a statement and tell people what we're actually going to try and achieve.
Absolutely. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what, you mentioned the distillery is newly into the production cycle, but what are you producing at Hinch Distillery?
So currently at the minute, we are producing triple distilled single malt. That's what Aaron, our head distiller, wants this place to be known for. He wants you in X amount of years to pick up a glass. The first thing you do when you know that you taste it, you're straight away going to be able to go, that's the Hinch DNA, that's from drinking. He wants it to be a strong, Aaron comes from a background of distilling in Scotland, so he has that traditional single malt, that's his home. But we now have William, and he's fighting the corner for the peak. So I think in about 2 weeks' time, we will have our first peat distillation. So this place is, we would call it the Peat Creek. I think we're all, kind of excited for it at the same time. But, 9th of November 2020 is when we've done our first distillation. And a lot of people have had the pleasure of trying the new make. That's something that we have done when we invite you up. You're allowed to try it. We take you out. We've sent samples out. I think have you had the pleasure of trying the new make?
I have indeed. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. You know, we're not scared to hide that. We want to take you on a journey from this is where it starts and this is where we're going to progress to. That first 3 years where you might distill and then nobody tries your new make as such until it comes out as a whiskey. If you come here, you speak to me, I'd like to try it, I'll send it out in samples. We want to take you on that full journey. So at the minute, triple distilled single malt, which we want to be known for, but there will be double distillation that will creep in, and there will be peat that will come in there as well. So there will also, you know, it's all ahead of us. We've only been going, what are we now? We're 8 months in. We're probably 9-10 months into distilling.
Well, absolutely fantastic. And I mean, flying along, and if people are looking to pick up Hinch around the world, whereabouts would people find the bottles? Of course, Irish Malt will deliver straight to your door for the majority of the world. But if you're looking internally in countries, where might you look?
We are very lucky that during the pandemic, Michael, our international sales director, didn't sit down. He was still on the Zooms. So we're now I think we're in 27, 28 international markets across the world. So, you know, you're in the States, you're in Canada, you're in the majority of Europe, we're as far down as New Zealand, we're in Japan, we're in Australia. You know, it is all there. Northern Ireland, ROI, UK. And in the next couple of months, we will be launching our e-commerce site, so you will be able to pick it up directly off our shelves as well. But as you said, Irish Malts, if you're sitting in a remote part of the world, no doubt you can pick it up. And we've got Dave now popping his head in. But yeah, we are in, I'd say, the majority of the key markets across the world. You know yourself, Matt, it's a hard one to get, and especially for us when we were a year into taking these whiskies around the world, that their thing called COVID, I don't know if you know about it, decided to put a spanner in the works for everybody across the world. But I think we dealt with it quite well. You know, it's a testament to Terry Cross, the owner of the distillery, to continue building it. You know, he could have easily said down tools and wait for it, but he didn't. He plowed on, and you know, we were ready to open once restrictions let us open.
And I suppose, speaking on that, maybe Hinch hasn't had its moment in the sun to be introduced to people at international whiskey festivals and such. I know you've went to a couple in the UK prior to the COVID lockdown and a few different around the world. Are you looking towards getting back out in front of consumers, or is that still a while away yet?
To be fair, I've just booked my first show today, and it's as far away as Liverpool. So listen, I'll take it. Michael Morris had the absolute pleasure of being in Poland at the weekend there, so he got the luck of the draw with that one, and said it was a surreal experience being back in front of people. You know, it took him a couple of hours to get that pitter patter back in and realize actually I'm standing in front of people. So the world of online tastings that we're on tonight is starting to sort of take a roll back, and the in-person festivals are well and truly being booked. So yes, we have Liverpool for myself coming up in September here, and then you've got Belfast Social. I think it's now pushed back to November, and sure enough, Whiskey Live in Dublin just announced itself for March of next year, isn't it?
Absolutely, 11th and 12th.
To see that back in the calendar, and just it's as much as it's getting out in front of the punters, it is getting out and speaking to your colleagues in the industry. You know, I've had the pleasure of Dave being up and saying hello to me in person, seeing the distillery, but it's getting back out. There's nothing better than being in person with people. So now that the shows are coming back, let's get going.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things people don't always realize, we, you know, in your role, Jamie, and in my role outside of 3 Drams, there's a lot of whiskey festivals you go to through the world, whether it's in Ghent in Belgium or Gdansk in Poland, or, you know, if you're down in Italy or wherever it might be. You see some Irish whiskey ambassadors on the road. You'll see a lot of Scotch whiskey ambassadors on the road, but there's never quite a show like Whiskey Live Dublin. At least for me, perhaps it's a home territory show. I know you're at it every year, but it's the whole industry in one place and 3 days, and it's quite a shindig for seeing everyone who loves Irish whiskey, and quite a shindig for everyone who makes Irish whiskey.
It is that state of me. So I had the pleasure of going to Whiskey Live Dublin as like a whiskey enthusiast, a blogger, whatever you want to call it. And then, you know, I never thought I'd be standing on the other side of a table and getting to work for Hinch. And then that November came around, and it was just like, from being on the other side of the table sampling whiskey to them being behind it is a totally different world. And like, the public don't get to see the fun that we have behind the table as well. You know, the stories we get to swap, and when the public go home, the drams that we swap between ourselves as well. And you know, you might, you know, it is funny that you're this ambassador in front of the public, and then when you're finished and you go to Temple Power for a pint of Guinness, you've still got the punters coming up and talking to you, and you're like, yeah, I better be my best behavior here at the same time. But it'll be different now with Whiskey Live being in March of next year. You know, it'll bring a different dynamic. What will it bring? I'm not so certain. With it coming up to Christmas, you know, people might not be able to venture out, so you might be getting new characters that'll be able to go, that sort of thing. So I'm just disappointed Whiskey Live isn't on my birthday anymore. So it only used to fall on the weekend of my birthday, and that was, you know, the extra celebration.
Absolutely, exactly, yeah. And I say one of the fun things about Dublin Whiskey Live that a lot of people won't know is when you're off to Liverpool or Michael's off to, you know, Warsaw or wherever it might be for festival, it's usually one person on the stand. So you're there from open till close. You'd want a good pair of shoes on you, and it's a long day. It's a long day on your feet. Great thing about Whiskey Live Dublin, half your distillery team will be at that table, so you have a lot of opportunities to explore.
Between Whiskey Live Dublin and Belfast Whiskey Social, you know, that's our two home festivals to go to. It's the same for yourself. So you do pull out the extra stops. You drag your head distiller out of the distillery. You drag whoever you can, and it's like, they don't want to see my face again. Let's bring somebody else to the show for that. But it's going to be pretty impressive. But like one thing, like you're a veteran of it. I'm in my coming into my third year of it now. But this year I have invested in a thick rubber mat to stand at it. So that's mine, and nobody else is going to be standing on it.
You've thought well. I've got the thick comfy runners. I used to always show up in pristine leather shoes, and that was a terrible decision. But Jamie, thank you so much for your time. For everyone watching at home, we have been trying the Hinch 10-year-old sherry finish. Jamie, would you show us the bottle one more time before you go there? So of course you can get this on Irish Malt's website direct to your door. And of course, at the end of the show, there will be a discount code for this whiskey if you've enjoyed it. Let us know your final thoughts on this. And Jamie, you've been absolutely fantastic. I know Emma's, I'm sure, dying for you to get down there and I don't know, either help her or be in the way, but I know you have to run. So very much appreciate it.
In the background, so well. Matt, listen, pleasure as always, and thanks to John for having us on 3 Drams. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Well, thanks very much.
Keep safe.
Well, we are delighted to be able to move on to dram number 2. It's always fantastic to be able to go. We're now 1 dram in. We've started off our evening fantastically, and I'm very excited to welcome you to our second 10-year-old of the evening with Mr. Sean McKay from IrishAmerican. How are you doing, Sean? How's it going? Welcome to the show.
Very good, Matt. It's good to be here.
Fantastic to have you. I know, I think you are following Jamie's suit of being in the distillery as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm actually here in the Barleyfield Bar. It's a bespoke built bar for our tasting sessions here at the distillery. I can give you a look at the stills if you want to have a quick look at them as well, if that's all right.
Listen, this is your section of the show. You use this as much time as you want.
We'll give you a quick look around. So, can we flip the camera on this? Can we? I think we can.
We say, oh, here we go.
I've just turned it off. Yeah, here we go.
That's
yeah,
okay.
It's getting messy. So we'll just do it this way. So this is the bar here.
So for people at home that don't know, you're located on Achill Island.
Yeah, we're the only island distillery in the country. I'm just trying to figure out it's all backwards. Here we go. Yeah,
That's
so
okay.
This is the Barleyfield Bar. This is the Barleyfield Bar here behind us.
Very nice. And this is where you do your tastings for the
This is where we do the tasting sessions. Yeah, and just outside here now, we have, this is our little whiskey store. And then we have our 2 copper pot stills.
Very nice. Lovely little elevated platform there. And you've opted for the 2 stills, which now we're differentiating from Hinch with the 3. I suppose, what was the leading choice behind the 2 stills, or are you using 1 twice?
So just, I'll probably take these out.
That's okay.
The choice behind that was, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, no, the choice behind that was, well, you can see it's height-wise and kind of width-wise. The building was already, since you get them, the stills custom designed for the distillery. But also a lot of our source stock from the beginning would have been double distilled whiskey. So we kind of wanted to keep that tradition or that flavor profile in our whiskey as much as we could for our standard whiskies, our classic blend and our 10-year. And having said that, we kind of went down even a deeper route in the sense that it's no secret, double distilled whiskies most likely come from Cooley. So we actually got the master distiller from who's responsible for designing the Cooley distillery, David Hines, to come on board and design the whole distillery here for us. So that's kind of where we went with the two still setup, but we do specialize in making single malt and pot still whiskey here. And so we are doing a variation of double distilled and triple distilled whiskies on both.
Oh, fantastic. There's a lot of variation you can do on that setup there then.
Oh yeah, it's a huge amount. I mean, a third still would be nice. It'll make life a little bit easier on us, but yeah, no, we work it very well. And now it's just my own personal preference. I prefer a double distilled malt. I just feel there's a little bit more flavor to it. But then again, my brother prefers the lighter kind of element of the triple distilled. So we try and mix it up so that we have a good selection of both, you know?
Absolutely. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab dram number 2 here, and I'll invite anyone who is joining us and imbibing this evening for dram number 2, pour into the glass. Do you want to give us a quick rundown of what we are tasting in the glass?
Yeah, so the whiskey itself is a 10-year-old blend. I'm trying to find the camera there for you.
It's okay.
If you can see, it's actually done in small batches. So we've only done, we do this every couple of years, our 10-year-old batch. This is our fourth edition of this 10-year-old. Now, the first 3 editions were actually pure single malt. But as you know yourself, with the resurgence of Irish whiskey and the popularity of trying to get age statements and source them, we've had to add some grain whiskey to our 10-year-old just to keep that 10-year-old age statement alive.
Of course. Sorry, apologies. Keep going.
No. Yeah.
I was just going to say, one of the things I always liked about IrishAmerican is it was kind of one of the early adopters of the revival of the Irish whiskey boom. You know, it was always definitely one of the first brands I saw on shelf as I was getting to the whiskey, you know, the whiskey drinking market back in 2013, 14. And I remember always being one of the bottles on shelf. So it's nice to see the consistency of the products come through as well, which I enjoy, I appreciate. And as you said, it's damn hard to get stock out there these days. So I appreciate the effort.
Yeah, well, I suppose on that point, it was my late father, John McKay, who founded the whole company. And he was a bit of a visionary in that sense, in that, like you said, I think after Teelings, I think we were one of the first Irish whiskies on the market for maybe 4 or 5 years. There hadn't been any kind of new Irish whiskies at the time when we launched our product. And I think we were just fortunate to get a bit ahead of the curve. Like you said, you've seen it on all the shelves, probably. You know, as you said, you're based out near Dublin, aren't you, yourself?
Yes.
Yeah. So Dublin was obviously the first market that we went to because it has, the biggest population in the country. But we've kind of gone from strength to strength since those early days, and obviously we've built a distillery out in Achill off the back of it, so it's been going fairly well. But look,
fantastic.
We won't keep people waiting too long. The whiskey itself, it's a lovely aromatic nose to it. Personally, I get, the kind of dark summer fruits, a little bit of cinnamon and orange peel in there as well. I'm going to say dark summer fruits. You're kind of talking raisins, apricots, this sort of stuff. It's a lovely kind of fruity characteristic to it. What do you get yourself?
I'm getting a kind of a spry, almost zest of fruit, and I like what a lot of people are coming through in the comments. But this is, for me, it's fresh. And I'm trying to picture now. Is it almost like a peach mixed with like an apple zest or something? Like someone's kind of like expressed or pressed an apple and some peach gone on as well, rather than an apple flesh, if that makes sense. But tying in beautifully.
I just seen in the comments there someone mentioning dates. We've had a lot of people doing tastings throughout the summer, and that's one of the characteristics that a lot of people are picking up on as well.
Well, maybe we take a little sip and we'll ask people what they're tasting as well. Let's launch it. There's a fantastic mouthfeel to it. There's it's good mouthfeel, good body. Again, it's interesting. Sorry, it's kind of coming in waves of flavor. There's a nice.
We like to say here it's a bit of a shy whiskey, you know, in your first taste, and then it kind of develops on your palate, and you really got to get to know it. Sometimes you can get to know it a little bit too well. You might end up finishing the whole bottle. So, but I would try not to go too far tonight.
Sure, if you finish the bottle, it only means you have to buy another one.
Exactly, yeah.
It's beautiful. There's caramel again. There's dates coming through, but there's even more in there as well. Almost more like a stewed fruit with a little bit of tropical fruits for me and caramel. So fruit salad bar for the senses. Exactly. I mean, that's pretty much bang on what I was saying there. I love fruit salad or fruit salad sweets as a descriptor. I think
someone mentioned it to me before. I think we were doing a staff training with the guys up at the Irish Whiskey Museum, just at the bottom of Grafton Street there, a good few years ago now. And one of the girls came out and said, "Do you know what? That reminds me of pink jelly baby." So I was like, "Yeah, it's fruity." It kind of stands out to me as a taste note. And it's like, oh, when I was tasting it, actually kind of goes, yeah, it does kind of remind me of that kind of fruitiness. Or like you said, Starburst or something like that. Yeah, it has that kind of lovely fruity character to it.
Yeah, it was a few years ago. I've talked about this before on this show, but I was sitting there nosing whiskey one day and I tasted it, and I got Chewits fruit salad sweets. And I wrote it down. I had no idea how to explain that. And I just Googled what the flavor ingredients of it was. And I think it was vanilla, raspberry, and pineapple. So you're able to unpack from there what I was talking about.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And if people, sorry, I'm enjoying coming back to this. Like Jamie and Hinch, this is opening up really nicely with a bit of time. And I suppose where did the name come from for the distillery and the brand itself?
So like my father wanted to create a brand, I suppose, specifically for the Irish diaspora, and something that didn't kind of bang of, you know, shamrocks and leprechauns and, you know, paddywhackery for want of a better word, you know. And we did do a bit of market research. Obviously, we were focusing our aim on the US being one of the larger Irish markets for Irish whiskey, and they came up with the idea IrishAmerican, and it's something that kind of wouldn't leave him alone. He had this idea for a brand for many years, but it was actually when we went to the trademark office, and they said that you can't actually trademark the word Irish or American. We kind of thought, oh, we're stumped here. But if you look at the bottle there, it actually says Irish American as all one word. So he got rid of the Irish and American, created a whole new word. And so now we own the unique trademark to the Irish American Trading Company, which it was pretty clever. He wasn't one to take no for an answer, that's for sure. But things like that as well. The fact that we have, you know, like the sail and shippers, our logo there, that's because, again, your first kind of large wave of Irish immigrants would have happened during the Great Famine, and especially here in the west of Ireland, there was whole villages and towns decimated by it, and they kind of had a choice to stay and starve or get on a boat and go to America, which seems like a simple choice now. In today's terms, you can go to the US and be there in 5 or 6 hours, but the conditions on most of these ships at the time were treacherous. You know, you had about an 80% chance of dying, and they were called coffin ships at the time. So this particular ship, which is inspired by our logo, is called the Jeannie Johnson. So you can see her there. So the Jeannie Johnson actually made 16 voyages without a single loss of life during that period. So that's where we always find it important to keep it on as part of our logo. And she's always facing west towards America. And then you read Irish American east back towards home. So so we like to keep that there because it was like a shining light in otherwise bleak period in Irish history, So that's why we kind of the foundations of the brand and kind of what we're building towards. And it's something that, he wanted to create something with a bit of authenticity, enthusiasm behind it as well. And just that spirit of, freedom and, the ability to kind of make a better life for yourself. So like in them early days when the Irish would have immigrated during the late 1800s, there would have been signs posted all over the States, even in the UK and around Europe. No Irish need apply. They weren't. We weren't the most popular culture at the time, but since then we've kind of
look at us now.
Look at us now, exactly. Yeah. So since then we brought our good humour, culture, and obviously our great Irish whiskies around the world. And look, St. Patrick's Day is one of the most celebrated international events throughout the world. So it's just a testament to the Irish spirit and character that even though when times are tough, we always kind of seem to pull through and make the best of any situation, And we drop a whiskey.
Absolutely. And I suppose if you were to, and there's a lot of people in the US who have subscriptions to 3 Drams, and it's fantastic to have them both live. And I know it's often torturing of the people who watch us from the US because of the fantastic time differences. So usually we have a lot of people watching on their lunch breaks or at their desks. And will imbibe later on. But if you're in the US, I suppose first of all, and because I know I've seen lots of photographs and videos of yourself and your team in a fantastic old, I think 50s pickup trucks, cruising around the US. Where are the kind of hubs that you guys, I suppose, have focused on in the US?
Well, I suppose. New York, obviously, and Boston, Massachusetts, and upstate New York. California is a great market for us, so you can get it in your Bevmo stores in California. And then places like Missouri, Kansas, and Washington State, different places like that we've kind of ventured to places where not everyone would expect you to go. So we found we've got good penetration in them markets, but also similarly in the US, you can buy it through our online retailers in the US as well, if that's what people want to do, and that gives us great distribution that way as well. So it's great to have them options.
Absolutely, and I suppose. You're now director of this company, and you've got this fantastic distillery where you're sitting in the lovely bar. What's the future look like for the Connacht Distillery and Irish American, one word TM? Watch that space. Brand going forwards.
So a couple of different things. We're going to be. I was actually just off the phone with John before I came in here. We're going to be launching our Founders Reserve 19-year-olds in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and that's going to be an exclusive bottling, but it's going to be the inaugural release of what we call our Founders Reserve. So it's going to be done at cask strength at 54%. It's a 19-year-old single malt, and it's actually fully matured in rum casks. So it's and it's going to be a limited release of 625 bottles. And the reason for that is that it was the last whiskey that my father, John, actually sourced and tasted and approved himself before he passed. And we wanted to do something special with it. So it's going to be in a lovely kind of presentation box. And we're only going to do 625 bottles because that's actually his birth date. Well, in the American way, the 625, because we figured if we did it the European or the Irish way too, what was it? 256 bottles seemed a little bit mean, so we want as many people to enjoy this as we can.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure he'd love the sentiment and plays beautifully on the name as well. And when might we see that coming to the market?
Well, providing everything goes well in the next 3 or 4 weeks, I can show you the kind of case in here. If you bear with me, let me get this set up. So this is the comes in its own piano black finish wooden case.
Very nice.
And then here's the bottle. So as I said again, it's cask strength.
And you know the Irish whiskey consumers love a bit of cask strength.
Yes. Well, like we wanted to kind of go a little bit all out with this because it's the first edition of this release. Now, when I say first edition, we our Founders Reserve will be repeated every year, every other year, depending on. Again, we have the ethos here. We're not going to release the whiskey until it's ready or until it tells us that it's ready. Yeah, so next year we'll be releasing a 20-year-old. It might be maybe not be cask strength, but different cask finishes as well. So we've kind of in the fortunate position that again, Dad had great foresight, picked up quite a lot of this stock when he had the option to do it. And this is something we're going to be releasing every year up until it's at least 30 years old. So I can imagine it becoming a collector's item very, very quickly. But I'd always encourage everyone to, taste the whiskey. I'm always a big fan of, buy the bottle. But if you're going to buy an expensive bottle of whiskey, you should definitely open it up and drink it, because there's a lot of work and hard effort and, a long love affair trying to get that whiskey to the pinnacle of its taste. And it's a shame just to leave them in the bottle gathering dust.
Absolutely. Now, I'm not going to hold you to this, but a number of people have asked, is there any indication of price, or would maybe that be a little bit more?
That's what I was talking to John about. He was hammering me down there on the phone before I came in, but you're probably looking at maybe 265, 270, something like that. But I'll see if I can, shave a bit off my end and maybe get it a bit cheaper to the customers. But that's the kind of price point we're looking at roughly at the moment.
That's very fair. So in Ireland and Europe, just before we let you go, because I know you're busy in the distillery, if people wanted to find it, and of course, as always, you can get it from Irish Malts and deliver straight to your door. But domestically, what countries would people be looking at it in the European market?
Domestically, it's pretty much just here in Ireland, because our focus has been so heavy in the US in the last few years. So if you want to pick up locally, you can get it in your local super values, and then anywhere in Europe, you can get it through Irish Malts. We found that's the best way. Any of our international customers, the service that Irish Malts provide is fantastic. So we found that's worked very well for us.
Absolutely. And anyone who is coming in late, Irish Malts being the I suppose the parent company of 3 Drams. So it's always fantastic, because anything you get here, there will be a discount code sent straight to your inbox about 5 minutes before this show ends, which you can purchase any of the whiskeys we've had tonight at the end of the show, which is, I always think, a fantastic way. So you can purchase them right this second if you want. But if you wait about 25 minutes, you can get it with a lovely discount. As we're wrapping up, Sean, anything that the people out there watching tonight or watching back after the fact, anything they need to know about IrishAmerican or Achill Island Distillery before we go?
I suppose to sum up, we're one of the kind of few whiskey companies still on the market that's actually Irish owned and family run. And there's a lot of exciting things happening here in Achill Island. The fact that we're the only island distillery as well in the country, it's given us a really unique DNA to the stock that we're aging here, being exposed to the Atlantic Sea mist on all 4 sides of the island. So it'll be October of next year, October 2022. We're looking to release our first Achill Island whiskey. It'll be aged the full 3 years. And just, if you can see the mirror behind me there, that's kind of an indication of the style that we'll go for our Achill Island brand. So just to give a little teaser there for what's coming in the next year.
Absolutely. Well, Sean, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. It was the IrishAmerican 10-year-old. Of course, keep an eye on the inbox, because everyone who has been enjoying it so far, you can pick it up in a fantastic discount. So, Sean, thank you so much. We are going to keep a big eye out for your impending 19-year-old release. And thank you so much for your time.
Well, thanks for having me. Cheers.
Not a problem at all. So I am delighted. Three Drams is one of these shows where I'm able to speak to so many interesting people from so many different parts of the world. And tonight we are showcasing another whiskey I am so excited to be able to taste because I was recently lucky enough to be on a press call for the launch of this whiskey, which is Connacht Single Malt Batch 1. And we have from Connacht Distillery, Mr. Robert Cassell. So welcome to the show, sir. How are we doing? Of course, technology goes wrong at the worst moments, doesn't it? How are you doing, sir?
Good, although I feel bad. Everyone else had a way cooler background. Mine just looks the true form of my apartment and files and pictures, and yeah, everyone else is just way cooler looking.
well, I'm gonna say, look, it's fine. You could have had a green screen, but you're giving us the true Robert experience, so I appreciate it.
Yes, exactly.
Well, here's the thing I'm going to do. I'm going to invite everyone to take dram number 3. I'm not going to ask you about it just yet, so we can put it in the glass and open up for a moment if people want. I am keeping a little bit of all of my whiskeys this evening just because I like to go back and try them kind of side by side at the end of the evening. But as maybe one or two people might have noticed, not the Mayo drawl that maybe people were expecting from Connacht Distillery. I suppose, Robert, why don't you give us a quick rundown of who you are and where you're joining us from in the world tonight?
Yeah, one of the things I got to say is because I am in Philadelphia and we'll go into that. This is all I have left from my batch 1. So I hope that you schedule me for more of them so the folks in Ballina have a reason to send me more, because the entire time I've been in like the green room waiting, I'm staring at my glass, realizing I can't actually sip this because I don't have much left in my own bottle.
Well, as the head distiller of Connacht Distillery, you have shorted yourself, my friend.
I know, man. It's I look, if there's anybody who is by chance on that is taking a flight from Dublin or Shannon to Philadelphia and can bring me a bottle of the stuff that I made that year, I will make it worth your while. I don't care if that's I have to take you to dinner or I have to buy you something else. If you can be the person who brings me my own bottle, you will be my hero.
Now, I will preface this that there is a European ban at the moment.
Exactly. I will be someone's Uber when they show up at the Philadelphia airport.
There you go. A lovely airport. If anyone knows me, I spent 2 years living in Center City, Philadelphia, so I'm a big Philadelphia fan. So maybe I'll have to race whomever wants to take on that challenge back to the city of brotherly love. But so what is it? What is a man doing in Philadelphia? Which part of, I suppose this is irrelevant to most people, which part of the city or the state are you joining us from this evening?
Yeah, so I'm in Old City, Philadelphia, which is a couple blocks from Independence Hall. Yep. Fantastic.
Old stomping grounds of mine. And if people are wondering, why are you in Old City, Philadelphia? What I suppose what is the connection between Old City and Ballina?
So, well, actually, the interesting connection is Scranton, particularly considering who is president of the U.S. right now. That said, when we were starting out the Connacht Whiskey Company, it was a combination of Irish and American folks. And for me, coming in as the company's master distiller and co-founder, it was a really interesting moment to try to express something different and, go out there in that way. And one of the things I will say, what you have in your glass today was distilled by 3 people. There was a guy named Gino, who ironically lives in California, who was in Philadelphia, that came with me to Ballina. Another fellow named John Park, and myself. So that's the 3 people who actually made what's in tonight's glass. I think that's kind of an important thing to say because, I do live in Philadelphia. When we were getting this off the ground, there was a lot of trips back and forth, and it takes a lot of people in a distillery to bring a product and something to fruition, whether it's sourced whiskey or it's like what we've done here, where we've made it and waited on it for 5 years to age. It's really takes quite some time. So
Absolutely.
of people.
And this is this evening, the first, and I suppose only whiskey we're going to be having that is distilled at the distillery rather than source stock. What exactly is in our glass? It's probably a good moment to dive in for a second and have a little nose, because I had a cheeky little nose there, and it is a lovely experience.
Oh, I already sipped, but I'll go in again. So one of the things I always say to people is when you're tasting a whiskey is, instead of just throwing it down your gullet, taking a much smaller sip, letting it hit your gums, your teeth, swallow, and then breathe out your nose. And by breathing out your nose, you get a lot more of those subtle aromatics that come through. So often I feel like sometimes people hear all of us in that whiskey geek world talk about, oh, we get this note of green apple or this fruit or this or that, and go, I don't get that. I don't get that. Is something wrong? Wait, do I have COVID? I don't smell that. You know, and the key thing I think is just, that thought of how we normally drink to enjoy versus drinking to taste. So when drinking to taste, that little exhale out the nose, you're just engaging so much more of the nerves in your upper respiratory system to be able to get those nuances. Now, what's in the glass tonight? This is 100% malted barley we get from Hinch Malting. Double pot distilled, all alembic, no plates involved whatsoever. First starts, it comes off the still. We ferment it at a little bit of a colder temperature for an extended colder ferment deliberately. And then equally looking at as we start to get into the design aspect of the still, start to play the influence of what you get. But the new make coming off equally doesn't come off, again, by design and being purpose built, doesn't come off at extremely high strength. It comes off at a lower ABV off the still to retain that grainy character, and I think you still get that, in the glass. You can get a lot of that general aromatics you assume off the malted barley. But so coming off of that lower ABV off the still, then we start off in a new American oak barrel. We typically pick a bourbon barrel that has an age statement of the original bourbon, no more than 5 to 7 years. The reason being is, well, sometimes people say, oh, let's get this really well-known, big, well-aged bourbon. Well, that's not what we're going for here, because we want there to be more character left in that barrel. I want to pull out subtle elements of honey and vanilla and toffee, but in a more subdued note than you might get with the first fill on the American whiskey. And then after a couple of years in that, we'll finish off in our Spanish Oloroso sherry. And then we will pick specific barrels that go into the overall blend that creates that batch. That's kind of like the little 101 of how we got. So Matt, I feel like I kind of went off the rails with your question and I just kept rambling.
That's fine. Listen, nobody in the comment section is going to complain about that, and I'm certainly not either. But perhaps if anyone has refrained up to this point, like I have, from tasting what's in the glass, maybe they'll say sláinte, and we'll have a little sip.
So the other thing you'll notice is, you'll notice a heat and a warmth to it, because this is bottled at a bit of a higher ABV. You're up at 47%. So 47% combined with all those rich characters, you get a heat that somewhat reminds you almost of a spice, like the way like coriander might be a spice, but in an extreme like subdued kind of level. I think one of the things I love on this, I love that it's somewhere between tropical fruit, honeysuckle, and green apple to me, that in the nose just keeps swirling. And I feel like every time I go back to the glass, my brain thinks of a different one that all kind of swirls in that little genre. And that little element of honeysuckle, I think, is really, really interesting.
And I'm seeing a lot of very interesting flavor taste descriptors coming through here as well. Flaming rum and raisin ice cream sundae. There's
come on. Who said ice cream? I'm a fat guy. I'm trying not to have ice cream. You're killing me. I need to like exercise more, not more ice cream. And that's going to absolutely make me want to have ice cream tonight.
I was going to say there's only some of the city's most famous ice cream parlors in Old City, so we shan't tempt you.
Matt, it is. No, I'm not even joking, Matt, when I say it takes me, I think, 25 paces out my door to get to that ice cream shop. It's so dangerous. It's so close. It's so dangerous.
It's so small and quaint and old, and damn, the ice cream is good. And they stay open late, which is the worst part.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, I'm seeing
that is not help my waistline.
A few people dropping in saying that their family or their wives. We see Matt from Dram Whiskey saying that. Sorry, this is talking about a bottle of hand sanitizers. He was talking about his wife living by the looks of it, somewhere around Second and Chestnut, which is the nice den in Old City, which is actually where I got this tattoo in Old City Tattoo.
Really?
So it was one of those things. You spend too much time in the bars and the Irish pubs down playing the stars in Old City, and getting a tattoo in Old City starts sounding like a really good idea. I love this tattoo. I got this completely sober, but the plan was devised over one too many whiskeys in Old City. But regardless,
the shop it's on Second between Market and Chestnut, right?
Yeah.
Is that where you went? Yeah.
But again, this isn't us reminiscing about my love for Philadelphia. This is us talking about everyone else's love for this whiskey.
I'm refilling. I just been staring at it. I'm refilling. Sorry, we can go again.
It's okay. For me, what's interesting, there's a nice there's a grain character to the nose, a malt character, but then there's as people are saying, there's a spice, but almost herbal note to it as well, which I'm liking is kind of coming through as it sits for a little bit more in the glass, and then in the palate, it's similar but not exactly the same. There's a lovely, a dynamic experience almost to the palate, and sometimes nose and palate can be detached, and it's not an enjoyable experience. This is more like a journey for me. I'm very much enjoying having a little sip of this. I'm gonna have a little of this sip.
Yeah, that grassiness or that herbal note to me, I think of more as grassy, and as a result of the high copper contact that our stills are designed to have. So the idea that when the vapor is flowing through our stills, it's flowing very slowly and having a huge amount of contact with the copper, that alters that sulfury versus grassy herbaceous note that one might think you get in the new make, then continues on through the process.
Absolutely. And why, I suppose, as I know, Connacht under your guidance has a number of different distillation styles, a number of different types of whiskey, and I know this was asked on your press release the other day, and I fear the same answer. But why double distilled malt from the get go?
One, I like it more. Two, the idea is, trying to showcase what is true to form and coming from the region. So instead of distilling something to a point where you get to such a high ABV in distillation, so as you increase your ABV, you're taking out water. With water comes some of those other interesting little trace elements of flavor. So by kind of maintaining that lower ABV and letting oxygen do its part against those congeners and those notes, we get to have something that allows the environment as well, affect what the influence of the raw materials are in that final spirit. So, the brewing, the distilling, the aging is all done on site at Connacht, on the banks of Moy. So it's really just trying to capture the flavor of what, distilling and aging in that area, in that kind of brackish water area results in Connacht.
I absolutely love it. And I suppose, what were the challenges for you and the team throughout the pandemic? Obviously, I suppose one thing we perhaps haven't touched on is that you also look after a sister distillery in Philadelphia, which perhaps explains somewhat of your location. What were there many logistical or operational challenges through the pandemic?
Well, yeah, not being able to get there. That's one. Not being the difficulty of getting samples, though I will say is my friend Julia from Germany, who is a well-qualified master blender, was able to really, really help me out and in a time of need and come over actually to Ballina and do her quarantine, then be able to come to the distillery and come through and be able to do that final blend. So every single day, her and I are WhatsApp messaging back and forth. And for me, I really, really appreciated her helping me in that way because her and I have known each other for a while. We trust each other. So we sit as judges together at different international spirits competitions. So I'm used to her lingo. She's used to mine. So when we talk about the way something tastes over the phone, like we're in sync. So I was super, super lucky to be able to get help from a friend like that to pull together the final pieces. I can't thank her enough in this kind of COVID restriction world that we're in, and being able to do that to help us out with that work. It was super, super helpful. Yep.
And that's
but
Julia Nerney, right?
yes, yeah. And then I will say is, you mentioned the sister distillery. If anybody ever wanted to know what might come next through Connacht, if they actually walked through New Liberty and saw writings on some of the barrel heads that said test or developmental or some of the things written on there, they probably have an idea of other things that are to come. Because we did all of our initial product development at New Liberty in Philadelphia while we were building out the facility in Ballina. So
fantastic. So again, as I said at the start of the show, there's still a European ban for the paddies going west, but once dropped, or anyone who's watching in the US or who has the ability to travel, get yourselves to New Liberty Distilling, a fantastic distillery with some fantastic spirits as well. I can attest to. So I suppose going forwards now, I'm hoping it'll be more time for you at the distillery in Ballina. But for this whiskey itself, are we going to see, is it a domestic only release? Or are we going to see it exported to different markets of the States, or is that kind of as it rolls out with the sales teams?
I would like to have some in the States, but I will tell you that has been an interesting yet pleasant problem of where most things have. I don't know if they're going to let me have much in the States because it seems to be going everywhere else. Whether it's you folks at Drams or it's, some of the other folks, the JJ Foxes of the world and Bradleys and others. Yeah, everybody seemed to take a lot quickly, and I'm not left with much for me in Little Pennsylvania.
Well, I like that you say Little Pennsylvania. The state of Pennsylvania, one of the largest single purchaser of alcohol in the world. So if you're not getting any, that means that Europe is definitely whipping up a lot of the stocks.
Yes. So again, if anybody is coming on a plane anytime soon and wants to meet me at the terminal for an exchange, we can do this.
You've heard it here first. We've had a lot of firsts today, but this is definitely one. The first perhaps bottled exchange, that if someone sources it, they'll meet you at the airport and maybe see some of these ice cream parlors in Old City that the two of us have rabbited on about.
I will buy them ice cream, whatever they want.
Twice. Well, Robert, thank you so much for your time and talking to us about this whiskey and tuning in from Old City. If there's anything that people should know about Connacht Distillery or this whiskey going forwards that you haven't had a chance to say, what would you mind?
You know what? Honestly, I'm more interested to see like what other people's thoughts were.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm people chime in on comments on their thoughts or taste or profile. So the one folk who mentioned expressive with a dash of water. Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people in here with a lot of different comments just about the expressiveness of the palate itself. It's a healthy 47% alcohol. There's a number of different, layers coming through in terms of flavor. I see Dram Fine Whiskey jumping the lovely discount email and saying he's ordering a bottle now, or perhaps actually the guys in Irish Malts who are very much on top of their game might have sent out that discount email already. But Sarah Kennedy up in Belfast saying she wish she was trying it. See, Sarah, I love that you've joined us, but you need the box. This is what we're doing. You could be, Robert and myself are imbibing upon some fantastic Ballinass spirit. For those out there who are watching, who have a glass in front of them, let us know what you're tasting in this glass, and also let us know as we're going through what your favorite whiskeys of this evening were. Everything's subjective, but I'm seeing Colin McKay saying that his favorite was this one of all three this evening. So I'm loving that. I'm seeing people. There's a number of people coming through now as well across different platforms saying that they've bought their bottles. So I'm definitely thinking that this discount email has already gone out. So check your inboxes. And Thirsty Foreigner saying that he loves the insights from you, Robert. And I have to say, you're a fantastically candid man. I love listening to you speak about the distilleries themselves. And I presume we're going to be seeing more exciting things coming from Connacht in the next few months, if not into the next year.
Yes, the list will continue to be gone, and things are to continue to be being laid down. So even the things that we're laying down this coming year, wait another 4 or 5 years, and there'll be another interesting expression to come through. So, just keep a lookout. There will continue, like I said, over and over and over. Matt, when was the last time you were over, by the way?
Recently enough, but for a day or two. It was a flying visit. But
was the barrel warehouse area pretty full by then? I mean, it's pretty jam packed right now.
It's pretty jam packed at the point at which I had to stand outside and look in from outside more so than anything else. It's pretty filled up. Yeah. No, so we've got a lot of stocks to come out. That's why I am hoping that, between everybody in the EU, Germany, France, and so forth, I get a little bit from me in the US. Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean,
I'm sure.
Literally, I don't even have a bottle to show my mom and dad. They've just seen me text them a picture of this bottle with this much in it.
You've restrained yourself well for keeping that much in it at this point as well.
Yeah. Well, so far.
Exactly. Well, Robert, thank you so much for joining us to talk about Connacht whiskey. As always, I say to our guests, feel free to wait in our green room area, and we'll have a little chat afterwards. But I will say to everyone who has watched along and tasted the Connacht whiskey, do let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Do let us know what your favorites were. The email has gone out. I always see a fantastic boost in comments as people come back in after ordering their favorite whiskeys of the evening. But Robert, thank you so much for joining us from Philadelphia. It's been absolutely fantastic to have you on the show.
Thanks, and just a big thanks to everybody, being part of 3 Drams and supporting all of us as upstart small distillers. And, the participation of buying a single bottle or telling other people about our small companies is imperative to the ultimate success of not only our companies, but, this rising tide lift of micro distilling in the Republic of Ireland. So it's a little bit goes a long way with supporting, this new vibe.
Absolutely. I don't think I could have said it better myself. You know that? Oh, Robert, thank you so much.
Yes,
As
I got the book. Hold on, wait. I think I have the book right behind me here. It is in my bookshelf.
Well, I say thank you to you, to everyone who's watching at home, watching back on record, and all around the world. Thank you very much to you guys, and to 3 Drams, and of course Irish Malts. And I'll say good night, Robert. I'll meet you in the green room.
All right. See you.
Bye.